This is Self-Starter. Hello folks, welcome to Self-Starter, a podcast that highlights small business owners, the self-employed, and freelancers who have taken the plunge to create their own desirable lifestyle. My name is Andy Dowling. I also host the Andy Social podcast. I'm also the bass player for Australian metal band Lord, and I am a dispute resolution specialist, amongst other things. A jack of all trades, I like to say. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook by following @Andy Dowling. And if you want to follow Self-Starter, we are on Facebook as well as selfstarter.com.au. We'll have a number of resources, a blog, and things in addition to this podcast itself. So you can go over there, including show notes for this episode will be over at selfstarter.com.au. So guys, here we are. First episode of the podcast, first proper one anyway. It's episode 2, but the first proper episode. And this week's guest is with Kelly Goltz. Now, Kelly is the owner of the Hippie shop, which is located in Vincentia and Huskisson in the Shoalhaven region, South Coast, New South Wales, for people that aren't local. And the Hippie shop deals with a whole range of handmade products and jewelry and homewares and whatnot. And I'll let Kelly explain it in better detail than I can. But this is a really cool, quick conversation with Kelly where we just learn a little bit more about her story. We go back to her relocating to the area, starting off in local community markets, building that community, building that loyalty from the locals, and then transitioning into her first shop in Vincentia, and then just recently opening the second shop in Huskisson. So a really, really cool story and some great insights. And I'm going to take away a few key points that I got from this personally, which I'll mention at the end of this podcast episode. So I'll leave it till then to go into it in further detail. If you want to reach out to Kelly, best place to do it is thehippishop.com.au. There's also a Facebook page. All that stuff will be on that website. You can go to selfstarter.com.au as well if you want to get all the links and resources and some photos and some additional stuff for the Hippie shop and what Kelly's all about. The two addresses, I'll quickly mention where they're located as well. So if someone's listening and they're in the area and they want to drop in, Shop 15, 5 Burton Street in Vincentia, and the new shop is Shop 1, 39 Owen Street in Huskisson. So you can go and pop in and say hello to Kelly and check out what she has to offer. All right, guys, enough rambling on for me. Please enjoy this episode with Kelly Goltz of The Hippie Shop. Do you just want to quickly introduce yourself and what your story is as well?
Yep, my name's Kelly and I've got the Hippie shop in Vincentia and Huskisson.
Yep.
So yeah.
Fantastic. And how long's the business been open for? Because you've got 2 stores now.
Yep. The Vincentia shop's been open nearly just past 2 years now, and then this one's been open 3 weeks at Husky. So,
brand new.
Brand new, freshy.
Far out. What were you doing beforehand, before you started this?
Well, I'd started markets for about 4 years beforehand, and then I've been cleaning as well and doing all sorts, but then the markets took off and everybody said you should really have a shop, so we did a shop.
Wow, so it was other people planning that idea that kind of got you...
Yeah, I think giving me the confidence to realise that people were hanging out for the market so they could come and get something from us. So they were like, then we can go any day and get it from you.
What do you think while you're doing the markets, what do you think the secret was? Well, not so much a secret, but what do you think the thing was that really sort of built up that customer base? Was it just being there constantly?
I think it was. We were there constantly, and we've taken the same philosophy. We were always one of the last ones to pack up.
Yep.
And it was the stall that people would come and hang out at the end and just sit down. We always had kids beating, so all the parents would lie down on the pillows and we would pretty much babysit their kids for a couple of hours. Cool. But yeah, that was a fun spot that people could come and hang out and mellow out at. And so
there's probably a bit of a trust factor there as well. They knew who you were. You weren't just there just to purely sell stuff.
No.
Obviously, that's the objective, but you were building a community around what you were doing.
Yeah, and we always offered that they could leave their kids with us to bead, and then they could go and check out the other stalls. So
that's a big commitment.
it was good though. As long as the kids wouldn't eat the beads, we were happy.
Absolutely. So, that's good. And so obviously, with the feedback that you're getting from people, it seemed to point in that direction that you would take the plunge and open up a bricks and mortar store.
Yep.
Wow.
So, it was a little bit scary, but went and...
Absolutely. What was the main fear that you had before you sort of took that step? Was there something in particular?
It was a little bit of a scary thing with the rent. to think what we could do. We were actually lucky that we contacted, it was Stocklands that owned where we went into at Vincentia, and just told them what we did and what we wanted to do, and just were blatantly open and honest with them, and were allowed to get a month-by-month lease to give it a go.
That's cool.
Which was brilliant, and it just exploded as soon as we opened the doors.
Wow.
So it was, brilliant, but it was nice to have that. I could walk away at any time if I wanted, and I'm not locked into massive commitments.
Absolutely. Having that
Yes.
exit strategy just in case definitely helps ease the stress. Was there anything that you did when you first opened up that store just to try and get word out there? Obviously you had your markets, your community from the markets, so that's easy. You can let them know as they come in.
We did a lot of Facebook, and which I found worked, but it just seemed to get itself out there. It was very quiet at Vincentia, and all of a sudden there was a very bright and colourful shop, and people just started coming in, and
that's cool.
We were very strategic in the shop that we wanted. We wanted that one on the corner, and it was visible, it got high traffic, and wanted that one. So
Wow. And then I guess the success of that first store has led to opening this one.
Yeah, we opened a second one last year at Bateman's Bay, and we signed up for a 6-month lease down there, which was a bit scary. But that one went really well as well, but it was just too much for me to be travelling
The distance.
that far all the time. And so we just stayed for the summer, and we're happy to close at the end of the 6 months, and then just waited out until we could open another one closer.
Wow. And it's literally up the road.
It is, and we weren't sure if we were trying to feed off the same sort of
Same
people.
crowd,
But no, not at all. So it's worked well.
And I mean, down the south coast, it's notorious for, I guess, up and down as far as the time of year, and travellers and whatnot come down here for holidays. So obviously there'd be peaks. Do you find that, regardless of that, you have some consistency with people coming in?
We do, which is what surprised us, is that we don't really dip too much over winter at all. We've got the same regulars that love coming in. We've always just tried to be flexible, which is what's worked. So,
That's cool.
if we end up fixing old ladies' telephones if they can't work out how to send a text message, it's all right, no, well, let me buy something to pay you for that. And so it's kind of just whatever. Everyone comes in and just can get, something fixed with their jewellery as well, or get things in for people if they want a present, or,
Have you, just on that note, even today, like, it's a pretty bleak day and a bit cool, but there's a lot of people out and about anyway, so it just goes to show that even the locals aren't too worried then.
No, and sometimes it's good if it's cold, because then not everyone's at the beach and they're all
that's
wanting
right,
to
they've got
come
to
and
find
hang out
something
the
else to do.
shop.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Since the first bricks and mortar store and then opening up this store now, have you had to add in additional things to sell or services to provide?
I have, because the markets were initially everything I made, and that was what the shop was going to be, and it got beyond what I could manage in any way, shape or form. I couldn't make enough to keep up, so we just started buying in little bits and pieces, and it's just grown now into its own little thing and just keeps changing all the time.
Absolutely. What's your biggest challenge now? After a few years of doing it, what's the biggest or the ongoing thing that you can see it's always going to be a bit of a challenge?
I think always just staying on top of what's out there, and just keeping tabs too on what else is around, like with other competition of other shops as well, and what to make sure that we're always, stay our good prices and everything that you can. But I actually struggle. I was saying to someone yesterday, I don't particularly enjoy shopping, so it's funny that I own a retail store. And really struggling to just keep buying so much stock. That's what's a real hard task some days. It's fun looking at it, but it's really hard shopping when you're not a shopper.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's interesting because, obviously opening a retail store and now having two, are you conscious of that when people come into the store?
Yeah.
Thinking about your own
Yeah,
sort of
which is why
approach?
I think maybe it's worked in a way, because we don't jump at people. We're just, how you going? If you need help, let me know.
Yeah.
And everyone's happy. They get lost in the music and just looking at the stuff. And then if they want to buy something, you can. Otherwise, just It's all right. No one's pressuring you to
that's cool.
make a sale or do anything like that at all.
That's it. People can sniff the desperation sometimes if you get hit up as soon as you walk in.
Yes, there's a few shops like that we've been in, and you just can't even walk through the door, and we're like, no, that's not it at all.
No,
just
we'll
let
keep
them. Yeah, yeah.
I've noticed that you've got a bit of an online presence as well.
Yeah.
So you do have the Facebook page on there, but I noticed that you do sell things online as well.
Yeah, it's a difficult one because all of our stuff is very one-off. So we try and do the website, but it's sold in the shop by the time you've popped it up, and it's really awkward. But we've kind of tried to put that out there because a lot of people realise, well, we're happy to post, so they'll just ring me and say, have you got this? And we'll take photos of what we've got, send it to them, and then just post it that way.
Can you see an advantage down the track of having more of an online presence?
I think I can, because I used to run another online business for about 5 years, which was very successful as well. So we did really, really well with that one, but I just had enough of what I was selling. So I can see it works, and it does work really, really well. But just trying to navigate around one-off items it's difficult. And like selling gemstones, you kind of want to touch it, not. So trying to figure out a way to make them feel what they want to buy on an online presence hasn't hit me yet.
And people get a little bit suspicious about certain things as well. As you said, they want to be able to physically see it and touch it and make sure that it's legitimate.
It's difficult. You try and tell them it's a 5 centimetre rock, and it's like it's difficult. You got to sit there with a ruler when you buy online.
Absolutely. So, do you try and excuse me for the horrible term here, but do you try and cross-pollinate between the people that are online versus the people that walk in the store? Like, do you try and introduce them to the other things?
Yeah, we do. A lot of the tourists, because a lot of people come down and like, we wish we had something like this in Sydney or wherever. And I'm like, well, take my card. We're on Facebook, you know, and if there's anything you want or you remember, and a lot of people do, they'll ring up, I was there on the weekend and I should have brought this skirt that was out the front and I didn't. So, it does work that way. And then when we're online, always trying to push people to go, we've got 2 shops, it's in a beautiful area, come down for a weekend. And
that's cool. That's cool. I think it's a great idea where somebody who's travelling stops by and then they have that regretful moment where they didn't actually pick something up, and to know that they could either pick up the phone or shoot a message online or whatnot, and then with a quick photo, that's it. It's on the way.
They've got it and it's done. And you know, one lady, she had it the next day and she was like, "Oh my God, I didn't even need to go down there." So
that's cool.
We try and just be as flexible as possible. So
that's probably the way that things are going now, is that you can't afford not to be flexible now.
No, because everyone's busy as well and difficult, and so it's just got to fit in with how they want to shop.
That's it. But definitely. Do you think that, I mean, you're still, I guess, in this business, still pretty new to it? I mean, obviously you've got a longer history with just being self-employed and doing things on your own but do you think it's easier now, more so than ever before, for people to start their own business, or to be at least sort of like a freelance or self-employed?
I think it is, and I think where we've been successful, and I see a lot of people where they never get started. With me, I've got an idea, let's just open. And then it will evolve. And let it grow as it needs to, rather than thinking, I need business cards, I need leaflets, I need a website, I need all of these things. And then you never get anywhere, because you either run out of money trying to get yourself perfect business where you don't need to be. No one's expecting it, and they actually, we find anyway, appreciate that you're real enough to go, we'll fix that up, next week. But at the moment, at least you can still walk in and buy whatever you wanted, and it still keeps the cash flow coming, and then you can just keep growing what you need rather than feeling it needs to be perfect before you start.
I love that, because I know so many people that have been sitting on an idea for 5-10 years, and they've never taken those first few steps because it's not perfect. They haven't got the image right. They haven't got.
And it's never perfect though. You start it up and you're like, why did I do that? That is so stupid. So we just get feedback from our customers, and then we'll just evolve it into what they need. If a shop says, have you got any leaflets, we'll put it in there. All right, we do. I'll make some leaflets then, I suppose. So everything, just let it evolve and grow on its own. And then it grows the way it should rather than what you think it should have, I suppose.
Yep,
but yeah.
absolutely. I've noticed in the last couple of years of being down in this area that the area, it's always popular sort of in holiday periods, but it's opening up a lot more. So obviously the roads are being extended and there's a lot more infrastructure being put in place. Can you see opportunities opening up down here for more people to start businesses?
I think there is, and when we moved up from Melbourne, and I'd lived in Sydney, but we're like, they're just missing, I don't know, I think there's a lot missing still, and yet we don't, we love it that it's a small town and don't want this massive Sydney infrastructure, but there's still little tweaks that could happen. There's rooms for so many little niche markets around here for people to open up into, and just
I guess
grow a little bit that way.
Well, there's enough people down here. They are small communities that are lying down the south coast, but in the end, there's still thousands of people down here. And regardless of whether you live in a city or you live in a more regional area, everyone likes the same things or needs the same things. So it doesn't have to be like the most elaborate, innovative,
no, not at all,
crazy, never thought of idea before.
No,
it's
just something that you think, like, I really want this. And like for us, we thought, well, we don't like going into town, like into Nowra. It's, you could just stay in the bay and never have to leave. And so, and it's worked. People don't want to have to drive into Nowra just to get a gift or just to get, their incense or whatever. So, you can just help it be what it is without trying to turn it into a massive city sort of thing, but just be what the people want and need.
Make it a lot easier. Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome.
I'd love to do a follow-up sometime down the track, because I know this store's only been open for a few weeks. So I'd love to know in the months to come what the differences have been versus store number one and then now store number two in its new location, and whether there's been different sort of challenges, even though it's only a few kilometres down the road.
It's a very different market segment, I think.
So I'd be very interested to see how things progress.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everyone. Hope you got something out of that. I was really impressed with just a bit of the background and the story leading up to Kelly launching that first bricks and mortar store, that first physical store, which for many of us seems like such a daunting task to take on, and something that for many of us seems just out of arm's reach. So it's really, really cool to understand a little bit more of the mechanics and the progression from an idea in concept to physically opening that first store, and then taking the plunge and taking on even further risk by opening that second store. So really, really cool. A few just quick takeaways, and Kelly mentioned this all in the podcast, and for you guys that are taking notes, no doubt you'll have the same things that I've written, but some really important things that I got out of this personally is that transition, building something from the local markets, understanding that your overheads don't have to be crazy. You don't have to dive straight into, commercial property and renting and buying and whatnot. You can just, take your stake in a marketplace and build something through there and just be consistent and build loyalty. And I loved the concept and well, it probably wasn't even a conscious thing, but just having like this child minding service that she did, like, on and off with different people while parents went off and did their shopping. And I think that's just really cool. It just builds local community spirit, support, and naturally when it came time that Kelly was launching that first store, she had a lot of people that were on her side of the court and really backing her to support her and making sure that those first difficult moments of opening a store were supported as much as possible. So I thought that was really, really cool. And it's just that face-to-face grassroots touch that has obviously had a lot of success for Kelly. A couple of other things. There's one thing that I've noticed with a lot of the conversations I've been having about the stereotypes around peak seasons. Living on the south coast of New South Wales with holiday seasons, there's a bit of a myth around with peaks and troughs with holiday seasons. And I think it will be different for every single person depending on what type of business they run. But for Kelly, she's certainly found that it's not as dramatic as maybe what other people experience or what other people may think it is, as far as the holiday season bringing in a lot more business and it being very, very quiet in the colder months in this part of the world. So Kelly's found a bit of a consistency even in those colder months, in those off-peak seasons, and I think that's fantastic. And I think there's a lot of things that we'll find in the conversations to come from different businesses, that there will be different perspectives on this particular concept and this idea, because some people have been able to capitalize on the off peaks as much as the on peaks, and some people are very much from the viewpoint that they make their money on the off peak, on the on peak season. I'll try and spit that one out, folks. And in the off peak season, being very strategic to build themselves up for when the on peak season kicks in. So everyone's got a different approach, and that's the best thing about what this podcast will highlight. The other thing is just taking action. This is probably the biggest thing that I found out of this, and this is an ongoing theme. It's something that I mentioned in the introduction, episode 1 of this podcast, where you don't have to have everything locked in. Not everything has to be perfect. You don't have to have all the artwork, all the imagery, all of the fittings and everything in place. Your vision, your dream doesn't have to be 100% fulfilled before you take action. You just need to take action. You need to get started. And even if it's rough around the edges, as long as you're moving forward, because the momentum, the feedback from other people, and that initial response from people will be fuel that will keep you going. And if anything, it might speed the process up and get you to where you want a lot quicker by actually taking those first few steps and just getting started. Taking action is such a big thing, and that's a big theme in this podcast and in the conversations I've had so far. So there's some initial key takings that I've had from it. There was heaps of things that Kelly mentioned in that short conversation. And I'm going to have a chat with Kelly in the months ahead as the second store gets its full steam and really starts to function. And it'll be interesting to hear Kelly's experiences with really managing 2 stores, 2 bricks and mortar stores, and obviously having the digital presence as well. So there's a lot of work there. It's not an easy thing and not an easy task to take on, but it looks like Kelly's on the right path. So I'm looking forward to catching up with her in the coming months. As mentioned at the beginning of the episode, go to thehippishop.com.au. You'll see all the links and information. There's some stuff to buy online. So if you don't live in the local area, you can purchase online, and just definitely reach out to Kelly directly via email or whatnot. And I'm sure Kelly will be more than happy to try and help you look for anything in particular that you might be searching for. If you're in the area and you want to pop into one of the 2 stores, Shop 15, 5 Burton Street in Vincentia, and Shop 1, 39 Owen Street in Husky. And I would strongly suggest just double checking those addresses depending on when you listen to this podcast in the future, just in case a shop relocates and things change, as they always do in, I guess, the small business world. So make sure you check those details out before you venture out and drop in to say hello. But it looks like Kelly will be around for a long time to come. So very, very cool. Massive thanks to Kelly, and I wish her all the best moving forward with her second shop, and there's a lot of exciting things in the future. Now, with that, I'm going to wrap up episode 2, but the first official podcast of the Self-Starter podcast. And I'd like to thank everybody for listening and tuning in and supporting the initial launch of this podcast. It is a bit clunky, and it's going to be a bit rough around the edges, but I'm taking action and we're moving forward, and I've got heaps of stuff to present to you guys in the coming weeks. I'm going to make this a fortnightly podcast to begin with. This is going to give a little bit of extra breathing space because I want to create a lot of content around every episode, and I want to make sure that I really give as much as I can to every guest that features on this episode. So it's going to be fortnightly to begin with, and as we get traction, I may increase it to weekly, like the Andy Social podcast. But ultimately, as we get started and we lay down the foundations and the framework, this will be a fortnightly podcast. So if you want to support this podcast in the meantime while you wait for episode 3, you can do so in a varying number of ways. You can go to selfstarter.com.au and just check through and visit the website and reach out to anybody that's connected to the selfstarter.com website, .com.au website. You can go to Facebook and like, share, comment, tag, do all those social media great things on the Facebook page. You can also please leave a review and a comment on the podcast player that you're using. There's a number of different podcast players out there, so any support that you can give via those channels will be greatly appreciated. For me, at the moment, it's all about spreading awareness and getting more and more listeners and growing this audience. What comes of it later on down the track is a completely different story. For me, right now, it's taking action and connecting as many people as possible to this podcast, and I want to give you guys as much value as possible. So we'll grow together, and I'm looking forward to presenting more business owners in the future for you guys. But thank you so much, and we'll speak soon.